You think you know betrayal? Try opening an envelope to find your name on a $150,000 loan for a beach house. You never agreed to, signed by your own mother. That moment, that gut punch of disbelief, was when everything I thought I knew about family shattered. I'm Claire Donovan, 30 years old, and I've spent my life chasing approval from people who saw me as nothing more than a paycheck. If you've ever felt trapped by those you're supposed to love most, stick with me. Hit like, subscribe, and let me tell you how I broke free and found what family really means. I grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut, where manicured lawns and million-dollar mansions hide secrets nobody talks about. My family, the Donovans, looked perfect on paper. My father, Edward, built a fortune flipping luxury properties, his name plastered on billboards across Fairfield County. My mother, Margaret, was the queen of charity galas, her smile as polished as the diamonds she wore. Then there was my younger brother, Tyler, 26, the golden child with a charm that could sell sand in a desert. From the outside, we had it all: 6 bedrooms, a 4-car garage, and a life most people envied. But inside, our home was a battlefield, where love came with a price tag. And I was always the one paying. I was never the favorite. That was Tyler, with his easy laugh and reckless dreams. From the moment he was born, the rules were different. When he crashed his bike at 10, my parents rushed to buy him a new one. When I got straight A's, I got a pat on the head and a reminder to keep it up. By high school, I was the responsible one, the one who studied late, earned a scholarship to Yale, and mapped out a career while Tyler partied through 3 colleges and never graduated. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't bitter, not then. I thought hard work would earn me a place at the table, a sliver of the love they poured into him. I was wrong. Now at 30, I'm a data analyst at a tech firm in Stamford, pulling 6 figures and living in a cozy apartment I bought myself. I've got a 401k, a savings account, and a life I built from scratch. But every step of the way, my family's been there, not to cheer me on, but to take. It started small. Can you spot Tyler's rent this month? Can you chip in for Mom's gala? I said yes, thinking it would bring us closer. Instead, it opened the floodgates. By the time I found that envelope, the one with the loan papers and my forged signature, I wasn't just hurt, I was done. That $150,000 loan wasn't just a number. It was a betrayal so deep it made my hands shake as I read the words, Cape Cod Beach House, co-signed by Claire Donovan. I'd never set foot in Cape Cod. I hadn't signed a thing. But there it was, in black and white. My mother's elegant handwriting on a note, Claire, we knew you'd understand. Understand, they'd staked my future on a vacation home for Tyler's Instagram aesthetic, and they thought I'd just nod and pay. That was the moment I realized this wasn't love. This was theft. I'm not here to just vent. I'm here to tell you how I took my life back. How I learned that family isn't blood. It's the people who show up without an invoice. If you're watching this, maybe you know what it's like to feel invisible in your own story. Maybe you've carried the weight of expectations that crush you. I see you, and I promise. By the end of this, you'll see there's a way out, a way to choose yourself. Stick with me, because this story isn't just mine. It's for anyone who's ever had to fight for their own worth. Picture a house that looks like it belongs on a postcard, white shutters, sprawling lawn, a driveway that could double as a runway for a private jet. That was my childhood home in Greenwich, Connecticut. 6 bedrooms, a chandelier that sparkled like it was mocking you, and a coldness that seeped into your bones no matter how high you turned the heat. I was Claire Donovan, The girl who thought love was something you earned, like a gold star for good grades. But in my family, love was a currency, and I was always broke. I was 10 when I first noticed the difference. My brother, Tyler, 6 years old, all dimples and chaos, could do no wrong. He'd fling his cereal across the kitchen, and my mother, Margaret, would laugh, call it spirited. I'd spill a drop of juice, and she'd sigh, her eyes saying I was a burden. By the time I was in middle school, the pattern was clear. Tyler was the sun, I was the shadow. He got private soccer coaches when he showed a flicker of interest. I begged for art lessons, but my father, Edward, said they were a waste unless I could prove they'd pay off. Prove it how I was 12. High school was where the gap widened. I buried myself in books, aced every test, and earned a full ride to Yale. My parents barely noticed. "That's expected, Claire," Edward would say. His voice clipped, like ambition was a chore. Meanwhile, Tyler flunked algebra, wrecked his bike, and still got a brand new Tesla Model S for his 18th birthday. I got a used Toyota Corolla and a lecture about practicality. I remember standing in the driveway, keys in hand, watching Tyler peel out in his shiny car, my mother clapping like he'd won an Oscar. I told myself it didn't matter. I'd make them proud someday. But there was this one moment, tucked away in my teenage years, that still stings. I kept a journal hidden under my mattress where I poured out everything: my dreams, my hurt, my hope that one day my parents would see me. I was 16 when I came home and found it open on my desk. Margaret had read it. I overheard her later, laughing with a friend on the phone. "Claire's so dramatic, writing poetry about being unloved." She's fine, just sensitive. Sensitive. That word was a knife, twisting every time I tried to speak up. I burned the journal that night, promising myself I'd never let them see me break again. Looking back, I see it now. My family wasn't just unfair, they were transactional. Edward measured success in dollar signs, Margaret in social clout, and Tyler. He was their masterpiece, a walking excuse for their neglect. I thought if I worked harder, achieved more, I'd earn my place. But no amount of A's or scholarships could buy what they gave Tyler for free. That house, with its perfect facade, was a lie, and I was too young to know the cost of believing it. I thought leaving Greenwich for Yale would be my escape. A chance to build a life where I wasn't just the reliable Donovan. By 24, I'd done it, graduated with honors, landed a data analyst job at a tech firm in Stamford, and bought a one-bedroom apartment with a view of Long Island Sound. My life was mine: a steady paycheck, a growing 401k, and a savings account I guarded like a treasure. But family has a way of creeping back in, doesn't it? For me, it started with a phone call from my mother, Margaret, her voice syrupy sweet, the kind that hides a hook. "Claire, darling, Tyler's in a bind. His landlord's raising the rent. Can you cover $2,500 this month, just until he's back on his feet?" Tyler. Back on his feet. He'd been jobless since dropping out of his third college, living in a sleek loft in Norwalk, paid for by my parents' loans that never got repaid. I said yes, picturing a family dinner where they'd finally thank me. Instead, I got a text from Tyler Sis. "You're the best. No dinner, no gratitude. Just another request a month later." It snowballed from there. Margaret called next, needing $5,000 for her charity gala. "It's for a good cause, Claire, and you're doing so well." I wrote the check, my chest tight with hope that this time they'd see me. Then Edward, my father, asked for a temporary $10,000 loan for a condo project in Westport. "It's a sure thing. Claire, you'll get it back with interest. I never saw a dime." Each time I said yes, I told myself it was for family, for unity, for the love I'd been chasing since I was a kid. Each time, the hole in my heart grew. The worst was Tyler's credit card debt. $20,000. Racked up on a Miami trip with bottle service and designer clothes. He called me crying, promising to change. I messed up. Claire, but you're my only shot. I paid it off. My savings taking a hit, believing his tears. 6 months later, he maxed it out again, $15,000 on a Vegas weekend. When I confronted him, Margaret pulled me aside. Tyler's just living his truth. Claire, you're blessed with stability. Be grateful. Grateful for being their ATM. I started noticing the pattern. The way their requests came wrapped in guilt, always framed as my duty. Edward's voice would sharpen. We raised you. Claire. This is what families do. Margaret's eyes would soften, her hand on mine. You're our rock, darling. But rocks get worn down, don't they? I was 28, staring at my bank account, wondering how I'd let them take so much. Not just money, my trust, my hope, my sense of self. I didn't know then that this was just the beginning, that they'd soon cross a line so bold it would force me to choose between their lies and my truth. I wanted to believe I could fix us. That's why, at 29, I planned a weekend in Manhattan, my treat, hoping to stitch our frayed family back together. I booked a suite at a boutique hotel near Central Park, snagged tickets to a Broadway show Tyler had raved about, and reserved a table at a restaurant with a Michelin star. I spent weeks imagining it, laughter, clinking glasses, maybe even a moment where my parents, Edward and Margaret, would look at me and say, "We're proud of you, Claire." It was a fantasy, and I fell for it hard. The weekend wasn't terrible, but it wasn't right either. Margaret spent half the time critiquing my apartment. So cramped. Claire, don't you want something grander while Tyler hijacked every conversation with stories about his latest fling? Edward checked his phone through dinner, nodding absently when I mentioned a promotion at work. I swallowed the hurt, told myself it was enough that we were together. But deep down, I knew I was still invisible. Then came Thanksgiving, the knife that cut deepest. I was at my desk in Stamford, scrolling through Instagram during a break, when I saw it, a post from my cousin Sophie, captioned, "Donovan Family Feast. Grateful for everyone here." The photo showed a glowing dining room in Greenwich, my parents' house, packed with relatives. Edward carving a turkey, Margaret arranging pies, Tyler grinning with our aunts and uncles, grandparents, cousins, even distant family. I barely knew they were all there. Everyone but me. My heart stopped. I checked the date last weekend. They'd planned a full-blown Thanksgiving, and I hadn't gotten a call, a text, nothing. With shaking hands, I dialed Margaret. She answered. Voice bright as tinsel. "Claire, sweetheart. How's work?" I cut in. "Why wasn't I invited to Thanksgiving?" A pause. Then her tone shifted, breezy. "Oh, darling. It was last minute. Tyler said you were swamped, and we didn't want to bother you. Tyler said I'd never told him any such thing." I pressed. It was the whole family, Mom, everyone. She sighed, sharp and impatient. "Claire, don't make a scene. Tyler's been struggling. You know that. We needed to focus on him. You're always so independent." Independent. The word landed like a slap. Code for, "We don't need you unless there's a bill." Before I could argue, she added, "We'll see you at Christmas." Okay, that's the real holiday. It felt like a consolation prize, tossed to shut me up. Later, Tyler texted, Sorry you missed the party. Sis. Was epic. Hey, can you help pick Mom's Christmas gift? Thinking Rolex. Need her input. Lol. No apology. Just another ask. As if my absence was nothing. That night, I lay awake. Memories flooding in family trips I learned about on social media. My Yale graduation where they showed up late because Tyler had a crisis. I'd been erased, over and over, and I'd let them. But this time, the hurt burned hotter, sharper. It was the spark that would soon set everything ablaze. The envelope arrived on a gray Tuesday, tucked among bills and junk mail in my Stamford apartment. It was thick, official-looking, with my parents' Greenwich address in the corner. No note, just my name, Claire Donovan, in Margaret's elegant script. I tore it open, expecting another gala invite or a subtle nudge for money. Instead, I found a stack of papers that made my stomach drop. A loan agreement, $150,000 for a beach house in Cape Cod. My name was listed as co-signer. My signature scrawled at the bottom, except I hadn't signed it. I'd never even been to Cape Cod. My hands shook as I flipped through the documents. Purchase agreement, payment schedule $2,500 a month for 10 years, and a handwritten note from Tyler T. Kex for stepping up. Sis. The old place was a dump. Needed this upgrade. Mom and Dad said you'd get it since you're killing it. Get it. They'd forged my signature, tied me to a debt I didn't choose. All for Tyler's dream vacation home. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was personal. A blade through every hope I'd clung to. I sank onto my couch, the papers spilling across my lap. Then I noticed something else. A bank alert on my phone, an attempted login to my savings account, the one with $50,000 for a future home. It came from a device I recognized Edward's old laptop, the one I'd helped him set up last year. The bank had blocked it, thank God, but the violation hit like a tidal wave. They hadn't just forged my name. They'd tried to steal from me, to gut the life I'd built. My family, the people who raised me, saw me as nothing but a resource to plunder. I called Edward, my pulse hammering. He answered, calm as ever. Claire, what's this about? I could barely keep my voice steady. Dad, there's a $150,000 loan with my signature for a beach house I didn't agree to. That's fraud. He chuckled, actually chuckled. Now, Claire, don't be dramatic. We knew you'd want to help Tyler. He needs this for his brand, his future. You make plenty to cover it, I snapped. Tyler's brand. He doesn't even have a job and you tried to access my savings. A pause. Then his tone hardened. We're family. Claire. We do what's needed. You're not going to make this a problem, are you? I hung up, my vision blurring with rage and tears. Fraud. The word echoed, cold and final. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a favor gone wrong. This was calculated, deliberate, a theft of my trust and my future. I thought of every dollar I'd given them, every time I'd said yes to keep the peace. And now this, a line crossed that I couldn't ignore. My shock was turning into something else, something fierce. I wasn't their pawn anymore. I was done playing their game, and I was ready to fight back. The next morning, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. The shock of the forged loan papers, the sting of my family's betrayal, it all hardened into resolve. I wasn't going to let Edward, Margaret, or Tyler rewrite my future. I called in sick, something I'd never done, and booked an appointment with Rebecca Stein, a lawyer in Stamford recommended by a colleague. Her office, a sleek space with floor-to-ceiling windows, felt like a fortress against the chaos my family had unleashed. I laid out the papers, my voice steady as I explained the $150,000 loan, the fake signature, the attempted hack into my savings. Rebecca's eyes narrowed. This is fraud. Claire. Textbook. Your mother's signature on that loan is a felony. You've got options, but none are easy. She walked me through it. Report the fraud to the bank and police, which could lead to criminal charges, or try to negotiate privately, though that risked more manipulation. I chose action. Report it, I said. The words heavy but certain. I'm done protecting them. Rebecca nodded, her pen moving fast. Good. First, we secure your finances. Then we hit back. By noon, I'd frozen my accounts, changed every password, and added two-factor authentication. A credit check revealed another shock, a Nordstrom credit card application in my name. Dated days after the loan. Rejected thanks to the fraud alert I'd placed. They weren't stopping. They were escalating. I called the bank's fraud department. My voice firm. My name's Claire Donovan. My signature was forged on a $150,000 loan for a Cape Cod property. I need this off my record. The representative, calm and professional, took my details and promised a swift investigation. But my family wasn't calm. Tyler's texts flooded in, a mix of rage and desperation. Sis, you're ruining me. I need that house for my brand. Why are you so selfish? Margaret's email was colder. Claire, your father is heartbroken. Tyler's devastated. We raised you better than this. Fix it. Edward left a voicemail, his voice low, threatening. If you push this, Claire, you're out. No family, no inheritance, nothing. Then came the social media storm. Tyler posted a tearful Instagram video, standing in front of the Cape Cod house, captioned, "Betrayed by my own blood. Family hurts." He didn't mention the fraud, just spun a tale of a jealous sister trying to destroy his dreams. Comments poured in, cousins, aunts, even family friends calling me cruel, ungrateful. My phone buzzed with their judgment, each message a reminder of how easily they'd swallowed his lies. But instead of breaking me, it fueled me. I forwarded every text, every post to Rebecca, building a case as airtight as my resolve. I wasn't just fighting for my money. I was fighting for my life, my truth, my right to exist outside their grip. And I wasn't backing down. Margaret's call came the next evening, her voice a mix of sugar and steel. Claire, we're having dinner tomorrow at 7. Tyler and your father will be there. We expect you. It wasn't an invitation, it was a summons. In the past, I'd have jumped at the chance, desperate for their approval. But now, standing in my Stamford apartment, the forged loan papers still burning in my mind, I agreed for a different reason. I needed to face them, to draw a line in the sand. I'll be there, I said, my tone flat, already bracing for battle. The drive to Greenwich felt like marching into a storm. Their colonial mansion loomed as always, pristine and imposing, a monument to appearances. Tyler's Tesla Model S sat proudly in the driveway, a shiny trophy of their favoritism, while Edward and Margaret's cars were hidden in the garage. Margaret greeted me at the door, her air kiss missing my cheek by an inch. Ready to be reasonable. Darling, she asked, leading me to the dining room. Tyler slouched at the table, scrolling his phone, barely glancing up. Edward stood by the fireplace, scotch in hand, his face a mask of calculated disappointment. Sit, Claire, Edward said, pointing to a chair across from Tyler. The table was set with Margaret's favorite dishes, roast lamb. Tyler's preference, not mine. I'd always hated lamb, a detail they never cared to learn. We're disappointed in your behavior, Edward began, his voice heavy, like I was a child caught stealing, lawyers' fraud accusations. This isn't how Donovans handle things. I took a breath, steadying myself. How do Donovans handle things? Dad, by forging my signature on a $150,000 loan, by trying to drain my savings. Tyler slammed his phone down. God, Claire, you're so dramatic. It's just a house. You've got the cash, why do you care? His eyes flashed. The same entitlement I'd seen my whole life. You care because it's my future you're stealing. I shot back. You didn't ask me, Tyler. You lied. Margaret touched his arm, soothing. Claire, you know Tyler's sensitive. You've always been jealous of his spirit. It's unbecoming. Jealous. The word twisted like a knife, rewriting my pain as pettiness. I leaned forward, voice low but firm. You forged my name. You tried to steal from me. You excluded me from Thanksgiving and thought I'd pay for your lies. That's not family, that's theft. Edward's glass hit the table hard. After all we've done for you, we gave you a home, an education. I stood, my chair scraping the floor. You gave me the bare minimum. Dad, I earned my scholarships, my career, my life. You've taken everything I've given and demanded more. I'm done. As I walked to the door, Margaret's voice followed, sharp. Tyler needs that house. Claire. What's he supposed to do? I turned, meeting her eyes, the same thing I did earn it. The door closed behind me, the night air cold and clear. I'd said what I'd buried for years. The weight of their expectations lifted. But the grief of losing them, or the illusion of them, clung tight. I drove away, knowing I'd just changed everything. The air in my Stamford apartment felt lighter after that dinner, like I'd finally exhaled a breath I'd held for years. But the storm wasn't over, it was just beginning. I'd reported the fraud to the bank, and within days, they called Miss Donovan, the fraud manager said, voice steady. We've confirmed the signature on the $150,000 loan was forged. It's off your credit report, and we're moving to repossess the Cape Cod property. Repossess. The word landed heavy. Tyler would lose his beach house, and I knew the fallout would be brutal. It started hours later. My phone lit up with Tyler's voicemails, each one more unhinged. Claire, they took my house. You're a monster. I'm stranded. And it's your fault. His texts were worse. A barrage of insults. Selfish, heartless. You'll die alone. I didn't respond. Just blocked his number. My hands trembling, but my resolve firm. Margaret and Edward weren't far behind. Edward's voicemail shook with rage. You've destroyed this family. Claire? Margaret's in tears. Tyler's broken. You're no daughter of mine. Margaret's email was a masterclass in guilt. How could you do this to your brother? We're humiliated. Fix this, or you're cut off forever. Then came the social media blitz. Tyler posted a video on Instagram, standing on the now empty Cape Cod driveway. Tears streaming. My own sister betrayed me. He sobbed, took away my dream for no reason. Family betrayal. He left out the fraud, painting me as a vindictive villain. The comments exploded cousins, uncles, family friends. How could she, poor Tyler Claire's always been cold? My cousin Sophie, who'd posted that Thanksgiving photo, chimed in. Some people can't handle others' happiness. The lies stung, but they also clarified my family wasn't just manipulative, they were a machine, grinding down anyone who dared say no. It didn't stop there. Margaret called my co-workers, spinning tales of my mental breakdown over family disputes. Edward even contacted my boss, Laura, claiming I was unstable with client data. Laura saw through it. Your father's full of it, she told me, eyes sharp. I've dealt with liars like him. Focus on you. Her support was a lifeline. But the invasion of my work life burned. They weren't just attacking me, they were trying to erase me. Then, a quiet voice broke through. My Aunt Elaine, Edward's sister, called late one night. "I'm proud of you." "Claire," she said, her tone warm. "They pulled this on my son years ago, a timeshare scam. We paid to avoid the fight. They're counting on you folding." Her words were a revelation. I wasn't the first victim, just the first to fight back. It gave me strength, but it didn't dull the pain of seeing my name dragged online, my truth buried under their narrative. The world they'd built was crumbling, and they wanted me to take the fall. But I was standing taller, ready to rebuild on my own terms. The weeks after the bank's call were a strange mix of freedom and ache. My Stamford apartment, once a battleground of buzzing notifications and dread, became a sanctuary. The forged loan was gone from my name, Tyler's Cape Cod house repossessed, and my family's voices silenced by blocked numbers. But the quiet left room for questions. Had I been too harsh? Could I have fixed things without burning it all down? I needed answers. Not just for them, but for me. That's when I found Dr. Sarah Brooks, a therapist in Greenwich, whose calm presence felt like a soft place to land. In our first session, Sarah asked, "Claire, what do you want your life to feel like?" I didn't know. I'd spent so long chasing my family's approval. I'd forgotten how to choose myself. Therapy became my map, helping me trace the scars. Edward, Margaret, and Tyler left not just the fraud, but the years of being unseen. Sarah taught me to spot their manipulation tactics, the guilt trips, the gaslighting, the way they'd framed my strength as selfishness. Slowly, I began to see I wasn't the problem. I was enough. Healing wasn't just in an office. It was in the people who showed up. My best friend, Hannah, had been begging me to join her family's Christmas in Vermont for years. This time, I said yes. Their cozy cabin, filled with mismatched ornaments and laughter, was everything my Greenwich childhood wasn't. Hannah's dad, Tom, asked about my job, actually listened, and remembered I hated eggnog. Her mom, Ellen, set a place for me at the table. No strings attached. We played board games, ate too much pie, and when Tom toasted to family, chosen or born, I felt a warmth I'd never known. I wasn't an outsider here. I belonged. I started building new traditions. I volunteered at a Stamford food bank on weekends, handing out groceries and smiles, feeling useful without being used. I joined a running club, my sneakers pounding trails along Long Island Sound, each step a claim on my freedom. I even tried dating again, meeting a guy named Mark who respected my boundaries and laughed at my bad puns. Life was opening up, not because I'd won a war, but because I'd stopped fighting one. Then came a surprise. My cousin Sophie, the one who'd posted that damning Thanksgiving photo, emailed me, "Claire, I'm sorry," she wrote. I didn't see how Edward and Margaret twisted things. I'd love to talk. No pressure. We met for coffee in Norwalk. Awkward at first, but honest. She admitted Tyler's demands had turned on her family too, now that I was gone. It wasn't reconciliation. Not yet. But it was a start. A crack in the wall my family had built. I wasn't fixed, not completely. Some nights, I'd wake up, heart racing, convinced I'd made a mistake. But with Sarah's help, I learned those were echoes, not truths. I was learning to live for me, to fill my days with people who saw my worth without a price tag. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving my family. I was building a life beyond them, one rooted in joy. not obligation. Sitting in my Stamford apartment now, with sunlight streaming through the window and a cup of coffee warming my hands, I can finally breathe. The $150,000 loan, the forged signature, the years of manipulation from Edward, Margaret, and Tyler, it's all behind me. But this isn't just about what I lost. It's about what I found. Family isn't blood. It's the people who lift you up, who see you without expecting a payout. It's Hannah's parents setting a place for me at their Vermont table. It's my Aunt Elaine's quiet pride in my courage. It's the life I'm building, one choice at a time, free from the weight of their demands. Looking back, I see it clearly. My family didn't love me. They used me. Every dollar I gave, every boundary I let them cross, was a transaction, not affection. When I found that loan, my name forged for Tyler's Cape Cod fantasy, it wasn't just fraud. It was the final proof that their version of family was a lie. Walking away wasn't easy. There were nights I stared at my phone, tempted to call Margaret, to beg for the love I'd chased since I was a kid. But each time, I chose me. And that choice, that act of self-respect, changed everything. Here's what I've learned, and I hope you carry this with you. First, protect your finances like your life depends on it, because it might. Check your credit report every year. Use two-factor authentication on every account. Never share your financial details, not even with family. I learned this the hard way when Edward tried to access my $50,000 savings. Second, know the signs of emotional manipulation. If someone makes you feel guilty for saying no, that's not love. It's control. Margaret's tears, Tyler's tantrums, Edward's threats. They were tools to keep me in line. Recognizing that set me free. Third, build your tribe. Find people who value you for you, not what you can give. Hannah's family showed me what that feels like. No scorekeeping, just warmth. Join a club, volunteer, reach out to that friend you've lost touch with. You don't need blood to belong. Fourth, don't be afraid to seek help. Therapy with Dr. Sarah Brooks gave me tools to rebuild my confidence, to silence the guilt Edward and Margaret planted. It's not weakness, it's strength. In America, where family is often put on a pedestal, admitting it's broken can feel like failure. It's not, it's courage. My life's different now. I got a promotion at work. My desk cluttered with thank you notes from the Stamford Food Bank where I volunteer. I'm training for a half marathon. My runs along Long Island Sound, a reminder I'm moving forward. I'm even dating Mark, who respects my boundaries and makes me laugh until my sides hurt. The scars from my family are still there. Mother's Day stings, and I'll always wonder what could have been. But those scars don't define me. They're proof I survived. If my story hits home, I see you. Maybe you're stuck, feeling like you owe your family everything, even your peace. You deserve relationships that add joy, not drain it. Share your story in the comments. Have you ever had to walk away to save yourself? What got you through? Like this video if it spoke to you. Subscribe for more stories of finding your strength, and share it with someone who needs to hear. It's okay to choose yourself. Real family doesn't come with a bill. It comes with love, unconditional, unshakable, and free. Thank you for listening. Let's keep building lives we're proud of, together.